Well, I couldn't resist, and I decided that I would do probably a brief program in honor of St. John of the Cross, whose feast we are approaching. It's the 14th of December. And my favorite poem by far, without competition, is The Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross. I discovered him when I was taking a Spanish course at University of Miami in 1972 before going to Mexico to join the Dominicans in 1973. And a lady professor who had studied chemistry in Cuba but began teaching Spanish at the University of Miami. I think Doctora de la Vega, but I forget her name. Recommended that I read The Dark Night of the Soul. I was learning, perfecting my reading of Spanish, etc. And I absolutely fell in love, of course, with this beautiful poem. So what I wanted to do, and it might turn off some people, maybe not. I don't have that many viewers anyway. Is to read it in Spanish first, as if I were a Spaniard, following the spelling of this classic edition. There are various manuscripts of the poem, but this is pretty much the standard one. And I wanted to read it because first of all I love it, and it sounds beautiful, and I wanted to give a sense of what it sounds like in Spanish with the rhyming. And then we'll look at a classic English translation by E. Allison Pierce, very famous English scholar of, I think, both Teresa and John of the Cross, that I read at the time too, back then, I think. And he has an excellent translation, but I wanted to comment on certain words and certain things, since no translation can exhaust the meaning of each and every word. And there are some words that are not really used in Spanish anymore, and certainly not in Latin America. They may be much more familiar, some of these words, in Spain, where I lived for 9 months, or so. But nevertheless, it's pretty clear, and this is not meant to be a theological or mystical theology commentary too much at all, but rather just to understand the words of this beautiful poem, and to hear it in Spanish, and then to look at it in English. And as I said, I don't think I will tarry too long with it. John of the Cross himself has a commentary on this, which I've read a long time ago with the Carmelites, and I couldn't find specific explanations of some of the phrases. I'm not even sure he finished his commentary. But in any case, our purpose here is not to make a big commentary on the meaning of this ascent of Mount Carmel. Obviously, it has to do with the dark night of the soul, which is a very painful purification that those who seek God experience. It can happen many times during life. And one comes out of this dark night purified and rejuvenated, cleansed and illuminated, and especially quieter, more calm and peaceful and serene, so that um, it's really almost the sum and substance of the spiritual life, going through all the difficulties and pains that we go through. I was thinking of people that when they're in their final days, or months sometimes, or maybe even years, they go through a lot of purification. And I've seen cases of very strong men, especially businessmen, who were bulls in their day, become, meek lambs towards the end. And I've heard it said more than once by priests and others, he was really purified in the end because of all the suffering. Now, and that's, it gives me the shivers to think about it. But certainly during our, humble lives, we have periods where we, it's not depression exactly, huh? It's a dark night where you have very little or no consolation, and you may even dwell on all your faults and all your defects and all your sins, and all the dirt in the recesses of your soul, so that John of the Cross does teach that you have the active purifications, which are due to our own efforts, fasting, or many other types of things we can do to try to improve, resolutions, etc. Then you have the passive purifications, where God Himself is the one purifying according to His agenda and not our control. And as I recall, John of the Cross speaks of something like one of these wire brushes getting into the crevices of the soul, extremely painful, even to look at the analogy. So I'm not going to read everything that some of the annotations say here, except that the immediate subtitle, if you will, songs or canticles, says, in which the soul sings of the happy venture. You could translate that of the happy chance, as Alison Pierce does, or venture can also be adventure, something that is to come, that you are not sure what it will be. Could be a strange event. But in this case, since it's a dichosa ventura, a happy venture, a joyous, something that occurred. That's what it really is. The happy event, strange event, if you will, or fate almost, but in the sense of something good, that the soul had or experienced in going through the dark night of faith. So here you have a theological point, which is that the whole purpose of this is to purify our faith, our reliance on God, from all the ulterior motives. Constellation, I feel good, I feel warm and fuzzy, things like that. And you have this, faith in the darkness, like Mother Teresa, or Teresa of Lisieux in her last year and a half, where she didn't believe, intellectually anyway, or feel the existence of heaven. In fact, I've read, books about how, she really sits at the table of sinners and atheists because she was experiencing, without wanting to, everything that sinners and atheists and, all these reprobates uh, experience. There's no rest for the wicked, etc. She had peace in her soul for sure, but she really could identify with sinners that way and non-believers. And of course, even Jesus, his fate is that of a condemned, cursed man. Cursed is he who hangs on a tree. And Paul talks about that in Galatians and in some other places. So that John of the Cross teaches that real faith is not dependent on confirmations, of the sacred miracles, stigmata, even all this stuff that people are rely on because they don't have real faith. They want proof that God exists, and that proof is furnished by miracles, stigmata, phenomena, all this stuff. I've said this before. St. John of the Cross was told of this nun that climbed the walls or something that everybody was going out to see, a phenomenon thing like Joseph Cotolongo or whatever. And he goes, no, I don't. He didn't even like images. He didn't like images. Teresa of Jesus liked images and beautiful, representations of the Passion and paintings and things like statues and everything, but not John of the Cross. And so he says, in nakedness and purgation or cleansing. This is the same word catharsis that is used in John 15, the vineyard, pruning. Every branch is pruned, which is a painful thing. We translate prune because of the image of botany or plants. That's what you do to clean a plant or something. But the actual word is purgation, catharsis, just really cleansing. So he sings of the soul sings of the happy venture that it had in going through the dark night of the faith in nakedness and in its purgation, in its cleansing to union with the beloved. So this is almost like the stages. There's a purgative life, the cleansing life, and then there's the illuminative life where you are illumined after the dark night of purification. And then you finally get to the via unitiva, the way of union with God, which is, the highest level, and that's what is known as spiritual matrimony. Teresa of Jesus had it. John of the Cross speaks about it. Catherine of Siena even got a ring mystically in a sign of this incredible union with God, in which Teresa of Jesus says that one cannot sin mortally uh, when that stage is arrived at. So I want to read it in Spanish. It took a little longer than I thought. And just get the cadence and the sound of it. I've done this before. I can still make a mistake, but and then we'll look at the translation, and hopefully we won't be very long. En una noche oscura, con ansias en amores inflamada, oh dichosa ventura, salí sin ser notada, estando ya mi casa sosegada, a escuras y segura, por la secreta escala disfrazada. Oh dichosa ventura, a escuras y encelada, estando ya mi casa sosegada. En la noche dichosa, en secreto, que nadie me veía, ni yo miraba cosa, sin otra luz y guía, sino la que en el corazón ardía. Aquesta me guiaba, más cierto que la luz del mediodía, a donde me esperaba quien yo bien me sabía, en parte donde nadie parecía. Oh noche que guiaste, oh noche amable más que la alborada, oh noche que juntaste, amado con amada, amada en el amado transformada, en mi pecho florido, que entero para él solo se guardaba. Allí quedó dormido y yo le regalaba, y el ventalle de cedros aire daba. El aire de la almena, cuando yo sus cabellos esparcía, con su mano serena en mi cuello hería, y todos mis sentidos suspendía. Quedéme y olvidéme, el rostro recliné sobre el amado, cesó todo y dejéme, dejando mi cuidado entre las azucenas olvidado. So that is the poem, and you can Google this on Wikipedia. You can Google Dark Night of the Soul Pierce translation, and you'll get what I have in bigger letters here. And I want to, compare a little bit what I, would translate, or which is very close. I mean, he's an expert, and I'm sure he did incredible research to get it right. So it is in a dark night, con ansias en amores inflamada, with yearnings, anhelos, and he has it like that. Inflamada, inflamed, which is, has to do with fire and a flame. So he translates kindled in love with yearnings. Oh, happy chance, oh, dichosa ventura. And again, this word ventura is, something like how lucky this is. What a great resolution. What a great outcome. Salí sin ser notada, estando ya mi casa sosegada. I went out without being noticed. My house already having calmed down, or having been tranquilized. So he says, my house being now at rest. So you see that. I mean, now that I look at it more carefully, you see that the Spanish, I mean, this is almost impossible to really capture in translation. If there's anything, almost nothing can be done like that. The Bible really can't either. Escuras y segura. So wrapped in darkness and sure. Feeling safe, secure is fine. Por la secreta escala disfrazada, by the secret ladder disguised. O dichosa ventura, he again says this, oh happy chance, or oh happy outcome. A escuras y encelada, he repeats that again, wrapped in darkness and in concealment, disguised again. Estando ya mi casa sosegada, he repeats that. My house having been put at rest. En la noche dichosa, in the fortuitous, fortunate night, que nadie me veía, that no one saw me, ni yo miraba cosa, nor did I look at anything. He says, nor I beheld aught, but no miraba, I wasn't even looking at anything. Sin otra luz y guía, with no other light and guide, sino la que en el corazón ardía, except that one which was burning in my heart. Aquesta me guiaba, but this one guided me, más cierto que la luz del mediodía, more surely than the noonday light. A donde me esperaba, whither or where was waiting for me, quien yo bien me sabía, the one I knew well, en parte donde nadie parecía, somewhere in a place where no one was around. So, quien yo bien me sabía is the one that I knew who it was for sure. O noche que guiaste. Now he exclaims, this is all in exclamation points. O noche que guiaste, O night who guided, or which guided. O noche amable más que la alborada, O night more lovable than the dawn, or the dawning of the day. O noche que juntaste, O night who joined, amado con amada, the male beloved with the female beloved, amada en el amado transformada, the female beloved transformed into the male beloved, Jesus. En mi pecho florido, in my flowery breast, que entero para él solo se guardaba, which wholly for him alone kept itself. Allí quedó dormido. There he fell asleep. Oh, he remained sleeping, but I think it's better to say there he fell asleep, not he stayed sleeping. Allí quedó dormido. Me quedé dormido. I fell asleep. It doesn't mean I remained sleeping. So here I would maybe even correct Alison Pierce. Y yo le regalaba, and I was regaling him. That's where the word in Spanish for gift comes from. Regalar means to indulge. He translates caress. That can be okay. But regalar means to pamper. And then in Spanish poetry, this is absolutely beautiful. Y el ventalle de cedros aire daba. And the breeze or the fanning of the cedars, I would say that's good, gave air, made a breeze. That's about as well as one can translate that. El ventalle de cedros, aire, of the cedars. Huh? El aire de la almena. So now he repeats this word aire, air. The air from the turret. And I was looking at this quite a bit in the Spanish dictionary. It says each one of the prisms, which is basically like a little tower, that crown the walls of the ancient fortresses so that its defenders can protect themselves there. So a turret is a little tower. And it comes from almine, which is Arabic with Latin, and the Latin has to do with a mine, mina, in the sense of a subterranean passage open artificially to give light, etc. In Latin, mine would be battlements or parapets of a wall, the same thing as the little tower. So I was trying to understand this. The breeze, el aire de la almena, this breeze from the turret. So I guess the air was blowing through the turrets. Cuando yo sus cabellos esparcía, when I was parting his locks, or while I sort of played around with his hair. It's very, very beautiful. En mi cuello hería. He was hurting my neck. He was maybe pressing or wounding. The actual word herir has to do with wounding, but it can just mean to touch, even to play an instrument or to press on it. Pero and maybe even the jugular or something like that. Y todos mis sentidos suspendía, and suspended all my senses, or caused my senses all to be suspended. In other words, no more sensation, no more feeling, but rather this union. Quedéme y olvidéme. I stayed and I forgot myself, Pierce translates, I remained lost in oblivion. Oblivion is good because oblivio in Latin means to forget. We say he's oblivious, meaning he's not aware of it. But the actual root is to forget. Quedéme yo olvidéme. I stayed put and forgot, especially myself. El rostro recliné sobre el amado. And I uh, reclined my face on the beloved. Exactly like Allison has it. Cesó todo y dejéme. Everything stopped. And I left myself. He says, I abandoned myself. But in Spanish, it's going to rhyme very well. Cesó todo y dejéme dejando mi cuidado. So everything ceased and I let myself go, letting go my cares entre las azucenas olvidado, forgotten among the lilies. Allison has it like that. So it is incredibly inspired. I've heard, I'm not even sure now, so many years. I heard that John of the Cross, wrote this, or at least came up with the words and the gist of it, while he was in that famous 9-month imprisonment in Toledo, where I lived, in my own kind of imprisonment in a way, for 9 months too, although I alternated weekdays in Madrid at the seminary studying. But John of the Cross says that he burned, roasted in summer and froze in winter. His clothes rotted from his body. He didn't change them at all. He would be brought out by his brothers who had not accepted the Carmelite reform that became the Discalced Carmelite separate order. Now they're very friendly and really interchange almost. Certainly the saints, they have common saints, etc. But they would bring him out to the refectory or some other disciplinary chapter or something and flog him. It was awful what he went through. And he escaped. He escaped down the window and went to some nuns and said, I am John of the Cross, And they took him in, but it was illegal, basically, according to the rules of the orders who govern their own friars, etc., to aid and abet, John of the Cross. And you know that he died wanting to be sent off to Mexico or someplace because they didn't want him around. And they sent him to a convent where the prior hated him. And so he had his purifications till the very end. So this kind of pearl of a poem is the product of this irritation in the oyster that is painful, but in the end produces this wonderful fruit, as to finish on a biblical note, as the letter to the Hebrews, one of my favorite and useful passages, which I have had to review when I felt the same way. In chapter 12 of the letter to the Hebrews, you have forgotten the exhortation that is addressed to you as children. My child, do not disdain the correction or discipline of the Lord, and do not be discouraged when you are reproved or by him, because those whom the Lord loves, he corrects and he flogs every child that he receives. You are suffering for your correction. As children, God is treating you. And which son is there that his father doesn't correct? But if you remain without correction, something that everyone gets, it is a sign that you are bastards and not children, legitimate. Furthermore, we feared our parents according to the flesh when they corrected us, and we respected them. Shall we not submit rather more to the Father of spirits in order to live? And they, our earthly fathers, corrected us according to their lights and for a little while, but he for our profits or benefits, in order to make us sharers of his sanctity, holiness. Certainly, no correction is pleasant at the time, but painful. But then it produces the peaceful fruits of righteousness to those who are exercised in it. Therefore, lift up those fallen hands and those swollen knees, and straighten for your feet the tortuous paths, the crooked paths, so that what is lame doesn't become disjointed, but rather is healed. And with that, I am going to stop.